About Time uses time travel to depict the fantasy we all have about having do-overs in life. But the whole point of the story is to illustrate exactly why we don't actually need them. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. About Time follows the story of Tim, who's 21 years old when his father reveals a family secret.
And the secret is that the men in the family can travel in time. Well, more accurately, travel back in time. We can't travel into the future.
This is such a weird joke.
There's some specific rules to the way in which time travel works in this story to keep it all pretty grounded. They can only travel back in time and then return to the time they came from. And they can only travel back to moments from their own life.
You go into a dark place. Big cupboards are very useful generally. Then you clench your fists like this. Think of the moment you're going to, and you'll find yourself there. After a bit of a stumble and a rumble and a tumble.
Now, some of you might already be thinking of all the potential ways this could break time travel rules and lead to plot holes. On one hand, you're right. On the other hand, who cares? I'm just kidding. If you're the type of person that likes to discuss the details of time travel, that's totally okay. But this movie is not interested in speculating about time travel itself.
And what about the whole butterfly effect thing? What can I say? We don't seem to have messed up civilization yet.
It's purely used as a way for Tim, and by extension us as the audience, to view life from a new perspective. And really, that's the purpose of time travel in most time travel movies. There's a few out there that are more concerned with the logistics, but the majority of them, including the ones we've looked at so far in Movie Club this month, really just use it as a narrative device. But here, that's especially true. So once the movie sets time travel logistics aside, it moves on to its main question, which is, how would your life be different if you had infinite do-overs? If Tim doesn't like how a thing turned out, he can just try again. Tim's father warns him not to use the ability to pursue financial gain because too many men in their family have ruined their lives doing so. So Tim shifts his main priority to finding love. But the movie gives us a clue early on that even with time travel, true love can't really be manipulated. Tim has a crush on his sister's friend Charlotte, who's visiting their house for the summer. Tim uses his time travel abilities to do exactly what he thinks Charlotte wants.
It's just a shame you left it to last night.
Okay, the last night was a bad idea.
Very bad idea.
But no matter what scenario he chooses, she still finds a way to turn him down.
But over the last month, I've fallen completely in love with you.
Why don't we see how the summer goes and then you ask me again on my last night?
Your last night?
Not only does this allow Tim to learn the lesson that he wouldn't want to use his abilities to make somebody fall in love with him that wouldn't otherwise, but it's also subtly telling the audience that that's not possible. It sets up some secondary rules about how this movie is approaching these elements to prepare the audience for the rest of the story. Tim then moves to London and stays with a family friend named Harry who writes plays for a living. The story introduces us to Mary when Tim goes on a blind date.
I hope I see you again.
You will.
Okay. Good.
Something that's really important to note here is that there's no time travel involved in this first meeting. It plays out in a familiar but charming rom-com kind of way. The writer and director, Richard Curtis, had previously done movies like Love Actually and Notting Hill, so that tone works really well here. We already jumped past the issue Tim had with Charlotte by recognizing there's actually a genuine spark here. The problem is that when he returns home from his date, Tim finds that Harry's most recent play has become a total disaster because an actor forgot his lines. Tim travels back in time and goes and helps the actor so that Harry's play will work. It's a nice thing to do for Harry, but it makes it so Tim's date with Mary never happened. So Tim uses what he remembers about Mary from their date that technically never happened to find her again. And he goes through several time travel hijinks before he's able to get them back to the point of that first date, but the important thing to note is that their relationship began with a genuine emotional connection, and he's just trying to recover what was already there. And that connection builds to the point that Tim and Mary decide to get married. If you looked at the poster or some of the marketing, you might have thought that this movie would be a full rom-com with time travel thrown in. Where the typical rom-com story might end, this one continues on. And that's because this was never actually a rom-com. The story is concerned not just with romantic love, but all the ways in which love might apply throughout the timeline of our entire lives. Tim and Mary soon have a daughter named Posy. Around the time of Posy's first birthday, Tim's sister, Kit Kat, hits a rock bottom in her life. She's in a toxic relationship that has caused her to spiral and get in a car wreck while under the influence. Tim takes Kit Kat back to the time she met her current boyfriend to make it so she never got together with him, hoping it will improve the rest of her life.
And this is what I should have done right at the start.
But when Tim returns, he's terrified to see that Posy no longer exists, and instead, Tim has a son.
Your mouth.
His father, James, tells him that once you have a child, you can't go back to before they were born or it risks changing who that child is. So Tim undoes what he did for Kit Kat to ensure that his daughter is born, and Kit Kat still gets into the crash. So there's two major lessons Tim has learned by this point. You can't manipulate or force love in your life where it does not truly exist, and as much as you may love the people in your life, you cannot always solve their problems. Instead of using his abilities to give a quick fix, he and Mary simply have to be there to support Kit Kat while she gets back on her feet, which thanks to their support, she does. But Tim's final lessons come when he learns that his father, James, has terminal cancer. It can't be changed because if James were to travel far enough back in time to quit smoking, it would be before Tim and his sister were born. When Tim finds this out, James also tells him the secret to happiness.
Part one of the two-part plan was that I should just get on with ordinary life, living it day by day like anyone else.
He experiences all the worries and anxieties of that day.
But then came part two of Dad's plan. He told me to live every day again, almost exactly the same. The first time with all the tensions and worries that stop us noticing how sweet the world can be. But the second time, noticing.
Good afternoon. Are you eating in or taking away today?
Take away.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
After James passes away, Tim uses his time travel ability to go back and spend time with his dad. But when Mary wants to have their third child, Tim knows that it will make it so he can't visit his dad anymore.
It's my last bit of extra time. The baby is completely on the way.
So even though his time travel abilities have allowed Tim to temporarily avoid that grief and loss, there still inevitably comes a moment where he has to let go. So he goes back for one final day with his dad.
Totally against the rules, of course, but if we don't change a thing, if we're very careful, it shouldn't do any harm.
After that, Tim mostly stops using his time-traveling abilities. And this is because he's finally discovered that there is more joy to be had in the intricacies and even mundane details of daily life than there is in constantly worrying over the things he regrets or thinks he could have done better.
The truth is, I now don't travel back at all, not even for the day. I just try to live every day as if I've deliberately come back to this one day, to enjoy it.
Tim's time travel ability didn't actually directly allow him to improve his life. Instead, it gave him the perspective he needed to enjoy it as it was. And so the movie is directly addressing that fantasy we've all had about getting to redo moments in our lives. Times when we were embarrassed or felt we'd lost out on an opportunity and we've dreamed of traveling back to do it differently. But this story makes the argument that the beauty of life is in the inherent way in which we can't take those moments back. They allow us to learn and develop. They shape who we are, and it's the passage of time that actually gives us our appreciation for life. All demonstrated through the story of someone who didn't have to abide by those rules, but ended up choosing to do so anyway. And if About Time is our simplest time travel movie of the month, next week we're going to be looking at the most complicated one. In Tenet, time travel is not depicted in the same way as any of the other movies we've looked at. Characters do not travel to fixed points in a timeline. Instead, people and even objects can invert their entropy, which allows them to reverse the direction they are going through time. So if time is like a giant treadmill, Tim from About Time was going further back along the treadmill, but the treadmill was still moving in one direction. In Tenet, people and things cause their treadmill or their progression through time to move the other direction. So you can't jump to a moment in time, you can only change the direction it's moving. But it doesn't affect everything at once. All objects are on their own treadmill of time. And that's part of the reason the story gets really dense. But as complicated as it may seem, the time elements are still just a narrative device that filmmaker Christopher Nolan is using to examine specific themes. So here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. What do you think this movie is saying about the debate between free will and determinism? Do our choices actually matter, or is everything predetermined by forces beyond our control? Why do you think the main character never actually receives a name in the movie and is only referred to as the protagonist? What do you think the movie is saying about society's responsibility to the future and the past? How do the characters engage with both the past and the future to affect the present? What do you think that is representing in our world? So let's chat about Time in the comments, and I'll see you back here next Sunday to discuss Tenet. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.